Hello everyone, Harry Baldock here, editor for Total Telecom. We're here on day 2 of Submarine Networks EMEA. I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Gabla, the president of the SubOptic Association. Paul, thanks so much for joining me. How's the conference going so far for you?
Yeah, conference very busy as usual. A lot of attendees this year. I think a record year for the conference, and we're seeing a big surge of interest in our industry.
I mean, absolutely, and we can touch on some of these points. And earlier today, you were on stage. You spoke a little bit about what we can expect from SubOptic later in the year.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting points that you brought up was a real educational focus, talking about nurturing that next generation. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what to expect.
Exactly. So that's been a focus of ours for a couple of years now, because we see in this industry, it's a very fascinating industry. So people tend to stay, and at the end of the day, we have an aging generation of professionals. So now we are really trying hard to introduce into our industry the next generation of professionals. So we are focusing our effort on the universities and the institutions and the young professionals to raise their awareness of the industry, what kind of career paths they could have in our industry, get them interested. So we have set up a number of events that we do. We go to them. So we did one in London where we invited a number of students from several universities. We did one in Paris. We did one in Lisbon. We are doing one in Egypt this year. Some in Japan, etc. So the aim is to show what the industry is about, what kind of career paths they can have, and then hopefully some of them will get interested. And to entice them even more, we are sponsoring for the next conference in Lisbon in June. We are sponsoring 20 students to come over to the conference. So we're paying for their trip and stay there.
Awesome. I mean, we're here at Submarine Networks EMEA. We're trying to do similar things, trying to really encourage this because it's a big challenge, and I do feel like we're making progress now, which has been great. Another thing I wanted to touch on, and you mentioned it, was kind of this challenge of cable maintenance and how we're going to keep looking after these cables with these long lifespans, especially as more and more are being built over the years. What can we expect in the next few years from the industry in that sense?
Yeah, so marine maintenance is obviously a very important aspect because reliability of submarine system is very high, but still they get cut by external aggression like fishing activity or anchoring activity. There's nothing you can do not much you can do to prevent that. Hence, you have to be able to repair as fast as possible. So the challenge that the industry is facing right now is there are a lot of new cables that are going to be built and installed over the next couple of years. And if the maintenance fleets remains the same, with some of the ships are actually aging and maybe not enough of them, then the repair time would increase. And that's not good for anyone. So what we are doing right now, we have launched a study which will be conducted by Telegeography, which is sponsored by SubOptic and a number of our member companies, to study the lay of the land today. What's the status of maintenance resources, how many systems to maintain, the age of the fleet, and then what we think will be required based on the forecast of systems to be installed, existing fleet, the age of the ships, some of them will need to be replaced. So that study will basically paint a picture so that the whole industry understands exactly where we are, and then we can collectively brainstorm what the next model will be.
You mentioned cable cuts there, and it'd be a bit remiss for me, given the environment we're in right now, not to talk about the kind of big focus that the media has certainly had on the cable cuts that have gone on in the Baltic. Obviously, we've seen damage in the Red Sea and other areas over the last couple of years. How do you think this is playing into the narrative, and do you think the submarine network community is kind of having their voice heard enough in the mainstream media in that sense?
Maybe not, in the sense that we are trying to get more coordinated effort in providing clever responses to whatever queries we get from media all the time. But it's true, there is a lot of sensationalism about cuts and where is it Russia, is it etc., Chinese, whatever. So in fact, there are very few incidents that happen that get a lot of publicity, but generally speaking, the infrastructure is very reliable. So and the whole world depends on it, and the whole world uses it. So yes, indeed, there are isolated incidents, but the journalists, when they ask us questions, they don't really want to understand exactly how it works, but really, is it a political issue or anything? Yeah, it's more like journalism. Yeah,
And of course, that's kind of affecting the regulatory landscape as well, with the kind of tightening of these regulations. Do you think that's going to be a kind of a problem for the industry over the next few years?
Well, many countries and governments and institutions are really looking after what can be done to make the whole network more resilient. So there is, for example, an ITU, a working group that has been launched a couple of months ago that addresses exactly that resilience topic, what can be done. So there are ideas floating around of investing into more cable ships, and some of them dedicated to some specific difficult areas, etc. So yeah, the thinking is underway.
Yeah. There's progress being made.
Yeah.
And of course, on the flip side of this, if we kind of think of maybe regulation as maybe slowing things down, we've seen this huge boom of AI and this investment in data centers and things like that. How do you see that affecting the industry, and how does that play off into SubOptic next?
Okay, so AI, you can look at it from two different angles. So how is AI helping us better manage and monitor our network? So that's one thing. But the really big thing about AI is the amount of traffic and bandwidth demand that it generates. So that's why we see an enormous surge in demand for new cables, because everybody around the world, well, first the hyperscalers, of course, but then all the other carriers as well, are bracing for that AI uptick. So it's already visible, but it's just the beginning. So our market right now is booming because of that, and we're trying to cope with demand and increasing our resources to be able to face that growing demand, which is probably going to be there for well, nobody knows for sure what the future is made of, but at least the next 5 years we'll have a continuing very high level of activity as we see today.
And one final question for you. With all these new cables going in, sustainability is kind of more important than ever, and monitoring. What kind of role is that going to play in SubOptic?
So we have first of all, SubOptic is actually conducting a number of research projects around sustainability to understand, for example, the carbon footprint of our industry, so these kind of things. But then beyond that, there are a number of governments around the world that are more and more conscious and focused about sustainability issues, and they ask us to introduce in the way we build systems, to introduce a number of sustainability concerns. For example, use cleaner fuels and loops for the ships and these kind of things. So, and of course, there are lots of environmental issues that are also being addressed now, or challenges, and they are built into the permitting applications for being able to install systems here and there. So everybody is very, very aware of these topics now, and indeed it's of growing importance.
Paul, I'm really looking forward to SubOptic, and thanks so much for your time. And hopefully I'll see you there.
Looking forward to see you in Lisbon. Yeah. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you.